Okay. All right. We open our county board with public comment, and anybody wishing to address the county board, name, address, and 2 minutes.
Chastity Siraki, 1254 West 3rd Street in Winona. I'd like to update you on the progress of my ongoing data request issues for cast vote records. Within a few days from the last time I spoke to you, I received the cast vote records for the 2022 general election. I'm happy to finally receive the data, though unhappy it took over 2 years. My next issue is with my 2 data requests for cast vote records from the 2024 primary and general elections. On April 25th, I received a message through the data request portal from Assistant County Attorney Kranz regarding my request for data from the 2024 primary election. He stated, Winona County reviewed its files and determined that there are no responsive records to your request. I have sent a message through the portal disputing the claim that the county does not have responsive records to my request. A cast vote record is the aggregated ballot level data on ballots casted, consisting of a single record for each ballot tabulated. This information was used to send our election results to the Minnesota Secretary of State and is kept in the county's elections management system. It is required by federal law to be kept for 22 months following election per U.S. Code Title 52, Section 20701. And as a reminder, Minnesota Statute 206.845, Subdivision 3 states that cast vote records are public record. Denying my request for cast vote records because a report of the cast vote records has not been generated by the county is akin to denying a data request for county commissioner emails because they have not been converted into a shareable PDF format. The data is there and it is public record, despite the format it currently is in. However, if it is true that there are no records, this should be very concerning to the board since it would be in violation of federal law. This prolonged and arduous process for acquiring public data is quite frustrating. I hope the board seeks action in clarifying and streamlining the data request process. Right now, I request my data request files be reopened and fulfilled in accordance with state and federal law. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to address the Winona County Board? Introduction.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Todd Sadler, new HR director. Pleased to be here. My day 4, I think, but come from state of Iowa, 30 years of public sector HR experience. And so pleased to be here and, look forward to my venture here. So,
Welcome.
thanks.
All right. Is there anyone online? I don't see anybody. And last time, anyone wishing to address the Winona County Board? Okay. All right. Thank you. We'll move into our agenda. Item 3, approval of the county board minutes from April 22nd, 2025.
I will move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Elzing to approve the county board meeting minutes from April 22. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. Item 4, acknowledge receipt of approved committee meeting minutes. 4.1 is the Board of Adjustment and 4.2 is Health and Human Service Advisory.
So moved. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Vagley to acknowledge the receipt of January 16th Board of Adjustment and April 15th Health and Human Service Advisory. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. Item 5, consent comments and approval of the agenda. Commissioner Vagley.
Nothing today, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Elzing.
I figure out how to mute my phone. It
Oh,
doesn't seem
okay.
to want to mute.
I'll count-
You ever
Oh, there
get
you
into that where
Yeah.
you hit mute, you turn the volume down, and it doesn't want to
Yeah.
go away,
Yeah,
so. I
I'll,
don't know.
I'll give you a second. We'll come back. Commissioner
Yeah.
Olson,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Meyer,
Nothing, thanks.
Administrator Hulty. Commissioner Elzing.
I'd like to pull 6-2. I just want a little clarification on it.
6.2, okay, well, 6.2, we'll make it short clarification, you said, so we'll make that 7.0. Anything else?
No,
Okay,
comment at the end.
comment, okay. All right, I would like to pull for a little more clarity and on funding of 6.4. So we'll make that 7.01. And then I need to ask for separate votes on 6.5 and 6.6. So 6.5 will be 7.02 and 6.6 will be 7.03. And a comment at the end. With those changes, we need an approval of the amended agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Vagley to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, amended agenda. Administrator Holty, you could read the rest, please.
6.1, approve letter of acknowledgement of spongy moth treatment. 6.2 was pulled. 6.3, approve purchase of service and business associate agreements with Goodwill Easter Seals, Minnesota. 6.4, 6.5, and 6.6 were pulled. 6.7, approve 2024 year-end feedlot program review and 2024 annual report and performance credit report. And 6.8, confirm payment of disbursement.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as it was read.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Olson to approve the consent agenda as read into the record. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, that is approved. So we will go to item 6.2, which is on page 27. And that was Commissioner Elsing.
Yeah, just a couple thoughts on this. How many employees do we have roughly in Winona County again?
Approximately 300.
Right, so if we're looking at 300 times, if we just say times 20 is 6,000 a month times 12, 72,000 plus 12,000 to get the service started, that's 84,000. For them to kind of evaluate what we're doing, go ahead.
With all due
Yeah.
respect, we're not looking at doing any other service other than the 12,000 to do the request for proposal for health insurance bids.
Okay,
We're not
All right.
looking at any other services.
beyond that. Okay,
No,
I'm just looking
no.
at what else is coming down the road. Okay, so with this, for the health insurance side of things, and I apologize, I could have asked some of this beforehand, but we're in the ag industry and right now it was questionable whether I was even gonna make it here today. Just looking at this, what are we, for 12 grand, are they just looking at this, we look at the redundancy of a 10-year program, that's $120,000, right? So that's roughly a half a levy point just to do this on a 10-year program. Is it necessary? What do we really gain out of this? Are they just pointing us in the right direction or what are we getting for 12,000?
So what they'll do is they'll work with us to obtain quotes, bids from vendors on our health insurance program. So they'll do all the advertising, they'll send out all the information, they'll gather the data, they'll analyze the data. They'll work with the vendors to get, the quotes themselves and to negotiate a lower price.
So they are actually negotiating.
Well, they will if we choose a vendor.
That's what I was wondering. I mean, I have health insurance. It's pretty simple. You have three things. You have an agent, they take care of it and they kind of come back and do all that for you, but I don't pay them anything to do that other than I'm sure they're getting a little cut out of the backside. So I was just trying to figure out, is this something we could do internally? And then I was looking at more of the ongoing cost at the time saying, hey, this could get very expensive to manage this year after year. So I guess with the $12,000, I could see that. The last time we did this though, didn't we do a 3-year contract? Didn't we have a 3-year locked in contract with health insurance? Is that correct?
Nope, that was 2 times ago.
2 times ago,
We can only get a 1-year contract because of our utilization.
right? Okay.
Yep.
So this is something we need to do every year though.
Well, not every year. We need to do it once every 5 years according
Okay.
to statute. But because we can only get a 1-year plan,
Mhm.
we need to do it again to see if we can get other vendors to bid on us.
Okay.
That was the problem we had last year, is we couldn't get ample.
Anybody to do it.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just making sure the cost doesn't escalate. So yeah, for 12,000, I guess for as big of a part of that is, that's probably somewhat of a fair deal.
It'll escalate, we know that. With all that said, though, are we paying $12,000 and are we gonna still end up with a 1-year thing? And then we're gonna have to do this again?
We won't know until we get bids.
Well, can we tell this North Risk Partners that if they don't come back with a 3-year thing, we're not gonna pay them the full $12,000? They're not earning our money. I mean, it's a lot of money. And as Josh said, you know, in the private sector, you make a few calls and you let people work on it. We have a new HR person. I don't know his expertise in health insurance. I think put him to the test.
He'll be part of the process, so I guess we'll find out what we can do.
And is it a flat 12,000 or is it a prorated?
No, it's a flat 12,000.
I don't like that either. We don't know. I just don't feel that I know that I'm getting value for my investment.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Maya.
thanks. How many HR staff are we down right now? At least 2?
Yes.
Okay. And we have 10 unions, which makes it difficult, much more difficult, let's say, than perhaps Mr. Elsing's company is. And I'll also point out that several years ago, instead of a 37% increase, we had a 7% increase, and it is because we had hired these folks to do our negotiations. So over the years, as we have had the conversations about this, I have seen that it actually, we don't have staff to do it. If we want to hire more staff, maybe that'd be great. But that these folks have turned out to be worth their value, despite the fact that, yes, health insurance is expensive. I'm gonna move to approve item 6.2, now 7.0.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Olson to approve the recommendation of North Risk Partners to complete requests for proposals. Commissioner Elsing.
Yeah, I just wanted some clarity and tried to understand what it was, what the long-term ramifications was. I wasn't trying to simplify it as to what we have and the complexity in the county and all the different things. It was me trying to understand what are we trying to accomplish and is this a dollar well spent? It very well could be, so.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. Carries 4-1. I would hope, I guess, then who's monitoring this $12,000 contract? HR people? Okay, all right.
Also us, ultimately.
Yes, ultimately, right. Okay, then we've got 6.4. Approval amendment number 1 for Minnesota Department of Human Services Adult Mental Health Grant Award, page 67. And I did some clarity. There was a budget with that. Let me get to the page. What flexibility, is that on a per individual or is that a general? The item that jumps out at me because, hold on, I'm still getting to the page. Housing, we're gonna be talking about housing and a couple things, and there's a line item in there like $20,000 for housing. So is that for, each individual we can approve housing, or could we take that $20,000, and do something in a bigger scale, the good for everybody in housing? Do we know what that breakdown is? And I apologize, I didn't ask it earlier.
I would need to get clarification from Karen Bunkowski.
Uh-huh.
However, my understanding is this deals with adult mental health and the need to house individuals from time to time, and that's what that money is for. So my understanding is we can't take it and allocate it to something in the community. This is for adult mental health cases where we are required to house them.
Mm-hmm.
A temporary housing,
Yeah.
excuse me, a temporary scenario.
That's my understanding, but I can get clarification.
Okay, because, it's a good chunk of, the whole budget is a good chunk of money. I had a feeling it was that, but there again, with everything that's going on with the state and the federal government as far as funding, I think we need to look at every source and do we have any flexibility to use that for the greater good of all our taxpayers and people who do need assistance and such. So, yeah, if we could get clarity from Karen as to, and then again, one of the other questions I had too is like, how many people are being served with this money? Does she have a count of number of clients that are being serviced with this grant? Commissioner Vagley.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the item and also have that follow-up information come afterwards.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the Amendment for Minnesota Department of Human Services Adult Mental Health Grant Award for 25-26. One last thing too is this guaranteed money? It goes into 26 and that's,
My
that's a,
understanding that's not on the block to be cut.
okay, because yeah, to plan and know if it's for sure. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay? All right, and we'll get follow-up and clarity from the department. Thank you. Then moving on to 6.5, approve LELS 537 dispatchers labor agreement, 25-27.
Move to approve?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Meyer. I will not support because again, my stance of no performance, pay for performance issue addressed. Okay, all those in favor, any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. Okay. Item 6.6, approve local 49ers labor agreement 2025-2027.
Move to approve. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Vagley, seconded by Commissioner Olson. And again, I won't approve it because of no pay for performance addressed issues. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. All right, passes. Then we're into our regular department recommendation 7.1. Receive update from Laura Patterson regarding ARPA funds. Good morning. That's page 183.
There is some information in your packet, but yes, I'm just here to provide a general overview. So as outlined in the information that you were provided, approximately 98.7% of the funds have been expended, with just little over 1% remaining. There are some projects called out that are working on spending out their funds through December 31st of 2026. Apple Blossom Drive Park, which I know you've had some other discussion with that department. There is one remaining septic replacement or repair that is underway or soon to be underway. Continuing funds for the position that I serve in, the ARPA grant coordination position. Catholic Charities Community Connector position and project, and then planned humanities project. There have been some additional requests for reimbursement since this information was put together for your packet. So we have approximately $112,000 remaining as of 4/27, which of this year, which was when our reporting was due to the feds. So with the additional requests that have come in, there were a little over $16,000 spent. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. The majority of our projects were completed and used the majority of their funds. I did provide a brief summary of each of those projects within the broader report, and both internal and then community-based partner projects.
Any questions? You know, I'm disappointed we didn't get any thank you notes. We handed out a lot of money.
I will
to
say
a lot
that
of organizations.
I will say that in communication to me via requests for reimbursement, there were appreciations shared, to the county, to the board. So I apologize that I did not bring those in a printed format. I'd be happy to provide those. But I did not get any physical cards. So handwritten cards were not provided.
Well, I just, we handed out a lot of money and I do appreciate the summary and everything. If there's any organization that we really like to highlight what difference they made with those dollars, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay.
Because it is all taxpayer money. And to know, and not just short term, but if, how it affects their operations long term. That was the goal. I mean, I heard a term the other day at a meeting, panic spending. We had to spend this money and we had to spend it really fast. So sometimes I think it was a little bit of a panic spending, but what was the how has this impacted our community and our organizations long term? I can't put my finger on it. Commissioner Meyer.
I will say that as a number of the work groups that I sit on through the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, The work that Hiawatha Valley Mental Health has done related to housing has had a big impact, and a lot of people do recognize that. People who have been helped by the services and people who are doing the helping. So.
So it'll be totally spent down?
Yes.
You don't have any pocket change you want to give back?
Do you want to
We'll
give
take
back
pocket
money?
cha- Today we'll take pocket change.
No, right now, all of the funds are accounted
Accounted
for to
for?
be spent. Yeah.
Okay, and all the reporting is done?
Yes.
Okay, and we
Mhm.
didn't have, we shouldn't be facing any financial audits or anything that we know of?
Well, there is a
with this?
requirement for a single audit
Right.
as a recipient
Yeah.
of these funds, but that's something the county does. So no additional
Additional,
audits at this point in time.
okay,
And there was guidance from US Treasury that they will be rigorously monitoring and looking at the following of the rules and guidance that were originally provided, but we have documentation of how each of our projects, both community-based and internal projects, meet the guidelines and the proposed statutory components of the final rule of Treasury.
okay, good, good. That's important, I guess.
Thank you for your work.
All right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. All right, moving 7.2, approve funding request for local housing trust fund. And that's page 190. Good morning, Buffy.
Good morning, Buffy Brennick, Executive Director of SEMSHA, and with me I have Patrick Mitchner, our Community Development Administrator. He does all of our grant writing and administers our housing trust funds. Today we are before you requesting approval of the recommendations to fund two awards from our housing trust fund. I'm just going to take a couple steps back to say, okay, where did the money come from? You know, how is it there and how is it being allocated? As you know, we spent 2024 setting up the housing trust fund for Winona County. Those funds that are in the housing trust fund that SEMSHA administers are administered in what I'll refer to as Out County, not the city of Winona. The funds that went in there are from the state affordable housing aid. Those are state dollars that came in. They actually came to the county. The county then transferred those dollars over into your housing trust fund, which SEMSHA administers. In addition, there's $45,500 available from the SEMSHA levy funds. So we had total funding available this round of $311,270. We conducted an RFP process. We had an open RFP from January through March, about 60 plus days that that was open. We sent out emails, we advertised on our website, we had it in the newspaper, we contacted nonprofits, developers, and we had 3 applicants from that. 2 nonprofits are being recommended for approval today. SEMSHA board has approved these recommendations. We use the SEMSHA board as a sounding board approval, kind of that pass through first, and then you have the ultimate say on the funding. That is how the Housing Trust Fund ordinance is set up, because it is your money that we administer on your behalf. So SEMSHA recommended funding Habitat for Humanity of Winona County with a $150,000 loan for the development of 2 owner-occupied homes in St. Charles, and also funding the Lewiston Housing Partnership with $161,270 in the form of a deferred forgivable loan for the rehabilitation of 12 units of USDA 515 property in Lewiston. These were the 2 strongest scoring applications. I'll pause there. Are there questions?
Elsie.
So on the Lewiston property, is that the complex there by the golf course, correct? It's the white, or is it the other one across from the golf course on the north side of the?
It's not Parkview or Greenview. That's off there, but it's in that same area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I know some
Yep.
of them need a lot of work.
Yeah.
So when they say it's a USDA, is that owned by the USDA or is that subsidized by the USDA? Is it private owned?
It's subsidized by the USDA. These properties can take many different financing forms.
Correct.
This one has a USDA loan on it. So Lewiston Housing Partnership pays a lower interest on that loan. And then they also provide I'll always term it as project-based rental assistance. So the USDA actually subsidized that property. This is a high priority within the state of Minnesota, within MHFA even, to protect these properties and not lose that subsidy.
So what exactly does this $161,000 go towards?
This will go to actual rehabilitation of the
So they're
building
fixing it up.
structure. Yes,
They're actually gonna fix it up.
actually, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's privately owned. It's being maintained and subsidized through multiple funding
Yep.
to.
Yep.
Interesting.
Well, it's owned by Sem-
Semtra manages this 501c3. Lewiston Housing Partnership, the partners are multi-county builders and Semtra. Managed by Semtra.
Multi-county builders.
Yeah.
which is a
It's-
part of Semtra. It's a side
So
gig.
it's not privately owned.
Not
No.
privately owned. I wouldn't, it's a 501c3 nonprofit.
Well, you can be private.
Right,
nonprofit,
yeah.
So.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner Vagley?
I apologize. Actually, do you have more to go through, Buffy?
I have more information I can share.
I'd like to make a motion to approve item 7.2.
I'll
Okay,
second.
all right.
I still did have a question. though.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Vagley, seconded by Commissioner Meyer to approve the funding request for local housing trust fund. Commissioner Meyer?
Yeah, thank you. So the first loan for Habitat for Humanity. I know when the language of the trust fund, it makes it so that is a loan which presumably would be repaid and then the money would be available again.
Correct.
I assume that we don't know the terms and then we don't know if it would potentially be forgivable.
For Humanity is not forgivable. That is repayable. It's basically gap financing for them to be able to build the twin homes. Of that, I want to be really clear where this funding's coming from. The 45,500 of Semtra levy that went into that will be repaid. And then the residual of that loan will come from the Saha dollars. You didn't ask this question. I was asked this question in front of Wabasha County Board. Buffy, why isn't a deferred forgivable loan just a grant? As a county, you do not want that. You don't, because multi-county builders could sell that property as market rate. You want that deferred forgivable loan on there to protect the affordability of that. And if it is sold, that is then due and payable back to the Housing Trust Fund
Revolving.
to revolve back through.
All right, any other questions?
So in essence, it protects the investment,
It does,
Yeah.
yeah.
but it is going to fix it up.
100%, I can guarantee that.
Yeah.
That was my big question, because the way I read that, it looked more like a subsidy to keep the rents low
No,
versus the actual to fix it. So-
indirectly it does.
Because I believe I know, yeah, one way or the other, but
Yeah.
I believe I know
But they're-
which
they're
apartment
in
that
need
is,
of-
and it needs some help.
They're getting beat up, yeah.
Yep.
They're aging, so they need
Yep.
to be, to keep them attractive, to keep them full also. People want to live in those places. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay.
Thank
approved.
you.
All right.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Buffy.
Thanks, Buffy.
All right. 7.3, approve resolution proclaiming May 14th, Winona County Law Enforcement Memorial Day, page 192. Now, here's where it gets confusing. I think we're even confused in our verbiage here. It says proclaim May 14th, Winona County Law Enforcement Memorial Day, and have a member of the Winona County Board attend the service on May 15th. But we need to correct that. You said the service is actually on the 14th, which is tomorrow,
Oh, at 1.
Wednesday at 1 o'clock. That's where it was.
I verified the invitation that I received from Ben Klinger.
Okay,
So it is tomorrow at 1 o'clock between the courthouse and the law enforcement center.
okay. So
Look out for flying shingles.
Are you able to attend?
I'm planning on, yes.
Great, okay.
Yes.
I'll move to approve item
Second.
7.3.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Olson to approve Winona County Law Enforcement Memorial Day, May 14th. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, it's approved. And to read the proclamation into the record, whereas the 14th of May, 2025 is designated as Winona County Law Enforcement Memorial Day and is set aside as a day to honor all fallen law enforcement officers And whereas the well-being of all citizens of Winona County and the United States is preserved and enhanced as a direct result of the vigilance and dedication of law enforcement personnel. And whereas more than 700,000 men and women at great risk to their personal safety presently serve their fellow citizens as guardians of peace. And whereas more than 145 peace officers across this nation were killed in the line of duty during 2024. And whereas all Winona County law enforcement agencies use this day to honor our fallen fellow officers, we have made the supreme sacrifice for citizens of Winona County and the city of Winona. And whereas this day also serves as a reminder of the dangers faced by currently serving law enforcement officers in their day-to-day activities. And whereas our officers do not serve in a vacuum, but are assisted in many ways by the citizens of Winona and Winona County. Therefore, I, Commissioner Marshall Ward, do hereby call upon all citizens of Winona County to join area law enforcement agencies in honoring our fallen officers on Winona County Law Enforcement Memorial Day, adopted in Winona, Minnesota, this 13th day of May, 2025. So again, that will be tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And I guess we have to be thankful we haven't had any incidences in our county for some time, which is good. We appreciate their service. 7.4, receive
You need to take a vote
presentation.
on that, right?
Oh,
we did.
We
No,
did.
oh, you did.
We
Okay,
we
sorry,
voted,
that's right.
then I read
Sorry.
it. Yes. Receive presentation, approve resolution for National Treatment Court Month. And I think Ms. Hyder is here.
Yeah, I just want to introduce Karen Hyder, who is our treatment court coordinator. Oh, as the as the materials indicate, treatment court is administered, if you want to call it, out of my office, and I have had the pleasure and honor of working with Karen Hyder for, what is it now, 8 years? Yeah, 8 years. We like to say the Karen Karin show.
Yeah.
Karen, and it really is a partnership.
Yes.
So Karen is here with one of our treatment court graduates, Kevin Soltze, who's going to be coming up also and giving you a short presentation also for another resolution for treatment court month.
Thank you, Karen. All right. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for welcoming Treatment Court this morning. So yes, May is National Treatment Court Month. This month we recognize and celebrate the achievements of treatment courts across the nation and here locally in Winona County. As a recap, or if you don't know much about treatment court, our court is a post-adjudicatory program. We accept nonviolent offenders into our program who have severe substance abuse issues and most often mental health disorders as well. They need to come in with a new felony offense or a violation on felony probation. Our treatment court has been active since 2012, so 12 and a half years now we have been in operation. We have 11 team members. I am the only staff member, and then we have 10 other individuals, including Karen, Christine Ladeber from the county, from the Public Defender's Office. Judge Storino has been leading as our judge for 1.5 years now. We have 2 members of law enforcement, Les Lodewig and Derek Lanning, 2 members from the jail, Trish Chandler and Katie Shield. Our newest member is Danelle Lawson. She's a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. And then lastly, we have the Department of Corrections, Bill Moe and Renee Patterson. All of these individuals, I like to name them because they give so much to our program and our participants. They have knowledge from so many different areas that I only know so much about so many things, and they help and support our participants greatly, and they have a profound impact on the lives of our participants. Also, treatment court is an open hearing. We would love to have you. So many of you have joined us at treatment court, and we appreciate that support so much. Twice a month on Thursdays at 1 o'clock is when we have treatment court over at the courthouse. Next graduation, I always get asked that. We don't have it set, but we're looking at a summer for sure. We'll have another person graduating, and we'll be certain to let you all know. 2024 statistics, just pulling out a handful of things that I'm sure the board would be interested in knowing. In 2024, we had the most people graduate from our program since its inception. We had 12 people graduate. Just a reminder, this is a 13-month minimum program, but most often our participants are doing probably 18 months in treatment court. That's typically because of the requirement of treatment up front. Takes quite a bit of time usually to get through residential treatment, outpatient treatment, and whatnot. Also because of their own personal case management goals that they would like to achieve before graduation. Our current graduation rate is 63%. We're very proud of that here in Winona County. The national average is 56%, and the Minnesota average is only slightly higher than that. So we're very proud of that, and we continue to hold strong to that graduation rate, which is very important to us. We also adhere very strongly to evidence-based practices as modeled by All Rise, which is our national treatment court organization. Of the 12 participants that graduated in 2024, we had 10 remain free of a new offense. We have been struggling with some relapse issues, which is not completely uncommon with some of our graduates, just a few, but we are constantly planning and brainstorming for how to help folks get back on track if that does occur. That leads me into our best program innovation in 2024, which is our partnership with the Department of Corrections Restorative Justice Program. The two restorative justice coordinators, Katie Kuyak and Kylie Davison, they have worked alongside myself and Bill Moe with the Department of Corrections in beginning this collaboration just a little over 1 year ago. So the intention of a restorative justice circle of support is to bring in individuals from the community to come in and have a meeting, a circle, where we have our participant present, those that are administering the circle, and then it could be family members, friends, professionals within the community, their recovery support sponsor, just some examples. We come together and we talk about anything that's going on with that participant. Could be case plan goals that they might be struggling with, could be anything in life that they're struggling with, but it's also a time to celebrate their accomplishments as well. The biggest intention is to set our participants up with supports that will be lasting throughout their lifetime, knowing full well that treatment court, hopefully the Department of Corrections, hopefully, is only in their life for a season. So this has been going incredibly well. We have 12 circles currently in operation, meaning 12 participants and graduates currently have their own circle. These occur typically every other week, sometimes monthly as they progress through. Our largest circle had 9 supports from the community attending, which was great. So great community involvement, more than we've probably ever had before from the community. So that's just been a really wonderful addition to the program. We're grateful to the Restorative Justice Program for all of their efforts in that. The last bit of information I want to discuss is our finances, which I think you all will be pleased to hear about. Our state of Minnesota funding level increased in 2025. In 2024, we received $95,000. All treatment courts across the state of Minnesota received a 10% increase for 25, 26, and 27. That put us at $105,000 annually at a base level. However, there's more good news on top of that. Our 3rd Judicial District Veterans Court was unable to spend all of their funds. They have a federal grant as well, so they're very blessed with a lot of funds right now, which is great. So that opened a door for other courts within the 3rd District only to request funding. So I did. I requested that we had $10,000 of what was left, and they granted that to our program. Lastly, the state of Minnesota had a cannabis prevention grant opportunity, which I applied for, and we were awarded an additional $10,000. That brings us to a grand total of $125,000 for fiscal year 25, which ends at the end of June. This is the most funding we've been provided to date in one fiscal year. With that, I'm very happy to report that very minimally, if at all, we would need the support of the county board financially this fiscal year, as I just reviewed the budget recently and we're doing very well. Moving into fiscal year 26, we will return to our base funding of $105,000, which is not quite enough to cover our entire budget at this point. So I hope that us being so fiscally responsible in 2025 will be considered by the board as we move into fiscal year 2026. So to conclude my presentation, I would like to welcome Kevin and Sasha to join me, and then we'll open it up for questions. Kevin is a treatment court graduate of ours, and he's joined by Sasha, his significant other. I asked both of them to attend because they're going to share a little bit about how treatment court has impacted not only Kevin, but their family.
All right, thank you. All right. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you guys. My name is Kevin Salty. I'm a proud graduate of Treatment Court. This program didn't just help me, it's changed my life. Before Treatment Court, I was caught in addiction and I lost everything. But through structure, accountability, and real support, this program has helped me get on a better path. I've been clean from all drugs for a little over 3 years. I'd say it's helped me reconnect with my family, my children. I got my driver's license back. I've held a great job longer than ever before. It's been almost 3 years also. And Treatment Court helped me with that. Treatment Court helps to connect with other recovering addicts by coordinating group outings, attending group events like kickball and cookouts. Today, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm a productive member of this community. And I'm truly proud of the man I've become. This program works. I'm living proof of that. And I know there are many more like me that just need the same chance. That's why I'm here, ask you guys to help support this program. It's amazing. Like I say, it's changed my life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sasha, and excuse me, I'm really nervous.
Don't be nervous. Okay. You have the table, between everyone.
We're just people.
Right. I am here today as the significant other of Kevin, who is a graduate of Winona County Treatment Court, and also someone who is, and I am also who's someone in recovery myself. I stand before you today deeply grateful and proud supporter of the life-saving work that this program has done, not just for the participants, but for the entire families of the participants and the communities. I want to be completely honest with you. Without Treatment Court, sorry if I get emotional, without Treatment Court, I don't think or believe that we would be standing in front of you today. Today we have stability, and most importantly, we have what matters most to us, and that's our children. Addiction is very powerful. It isolates you and it breaks you, and it breaks your trust and your hope and your connection. But through Treatment Court, it offers something even more powerful: accountability, structure, compassion, and a genuine path to recovery. It's not just a program, it's a second chance, and it is a lifeline. Through this program, Kevin has been able to rebuild himself. I've watched him learn how to be a responsible person and to be present and to be proud of who he is becoming. It hasn't just changed him, it has changed us as a couple and as a family. Our children now see how a home is filled with love, safety, and support. They see parents who show up for them every single day. I want you to know that the investment that you make in this program is not just about numbers or success rates. It is about human lives, and it's about children growing up with sober parents and present parents. It's about families staying sober together and about healing generations. Today, we are 1,142 days sober. And without Treatment Court, that wouldn't be possible. I urge you to continue supporting and funding this incredible program because it works. It's working for us. And I truly believe it is one of the most effective, compassionate responses to addiction, to crime, and any other county can offer. Thank you for giving me the chance to speak to you today.
Fantastic.
Yeah, congratulations to both of you on your
Thank you.
sobriety, and thank you very much for coming here to share your story with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What you guys have done is probably one of the hardest things that any human ever faces. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Any questions for me? Wow, that was powerful.
Well, I've got a couple questions. So you said you're very proud, and it sounds good, 63%
Yes.
graduation. Don't they have an option to go through it a second time?
So yes, if we have a graduate who struggles with
Saying,
relapse,
Yeah.
well, Kevin did that.
Okay.
Yes. I will say that the door is open to individuals who have not experienced the program first. If we do have openings in our program, we do consider graduates on a case-by-case basis, yes.
okay, so does that, the second time, well, for Kevin, it worked.
Mhm.
Does that boost your graduation numbers?
Yes, yes. We've only had a handful go through it a second time, and that has been a very beneficial piece of the program. We're very intentional at the beginning. what did we miss? What did you miss? You know, we're not just going to have you back in the program to do the same things over again. This is going to be more intensive
Sure.
and addressing issues on a deeper level.
Yeah, yeah, because addiction is a very complex.
It is. It
issue.
is.
I'm curious, the cannabis grant, $10,000. What are you going to do with that cannabis grant?
So there was only there's specific guidelines with that. We were able to pay for all of our drug testing with it. So we couldn't pay for staff or anything like that. So we used it for all of our drug testing services. Drug testing occurs at least twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, very intensive. So we go through a lot of drug testing kits and also our laboratory that would read if we had any positive test results and things like that.
Okay, all right. Well, I always feel it's kind of an oxymoron. We're legalizing another drug and yet we're throwing money to test for it. And yeah, it's kind of a strange thing. It will be interesting in our society, I think, just listening to all these new, I think I've got it right, GLP-1s. It's the weight loss,
Oh, sure.
diabetic medicine, but they're really finding a lot of things that deal with addiction. Now, there's just been a couple little news clips within the last week or so for alcohol and other substance use that it really greatly reduces. So I would encourage you to follow that.
I will.
I have a family member on it for a diabetic situation. You know, it's changed, greatly improved his life in that respect, but they're finding a lot with the addiction phase.
Interesting.
And,
Thank you for sharing that.
they're expanding the use of that. Now, is it good or bad long-term? We don't know.
Sure.
But
There's a lot of evidence showing
Yeah.
it's also not healthy.
Sure.
yeah. So I mean, it's something, just something to
Something to watch.
monitor and see how that works. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, one last thing.
Yes.
I see this a lot. You say treatment court saves $27 for every dollar invested. Treatment
Sure.
court saves more than 6,000 for every individual. Do you have worksheets on that?
Oh, I'm sure that we could get some of those
Okay.
for you.
I'm always curious how they come up with those
Sure.
numbers.
Those are national
what they-
figures,
National
and
figures.
they've
What they
done
throw into
studies.
there.
Yeah.
Well, you can
So-
just, shoot, if you got a copy
We'll
of something.
get more information.
Got access to
Yeah.
that.
Sure.
Commissioner Elsing.
But one of the questions I have is always got a nature to never be satisfied.
Sure.
So when people don't make it through, or even people that did make it through first or second time, is there a pretty, I don't want it to be like a homework assignment, but is there a
Right.
pretty extensive thing that says, hey, what would you change?
Yes.
What would you do different? Is it, I mean, we're constantly learning as to how to improve that, I assume to some. Is there a
Yes.
reoccurring theme that you're hearing on something that needs to be changed in that
Mhm.
department?
Yeah, so a few responses to that question. I want to say too that somebody that's terminated from the program, that could be for a variety of reasons. They need to wait, I believe it's 2 years before they get out of jail or prison before coming back to us because we feel like that's something that's totally different than somebody who's graduated. They did have success in the program. They're still on probation working with us and they had a relapse where they're still under our umbrella of supervision. So there's that difference too. To your question of what's missing, mental health comes up the most often, I would say. Sure, I went and saw my therapist, but I feel like I maybe need residential treatment for mental health therapy this time around. Or these other things have come up in my life, or I didn't dig deep enough. That's another common theme too. And so these restorative justice circles too, the support, that's also a common theme as well. I didn't have enough support. And that's kind of like what we thought you did. Well, now these restorative justice circles are really, really bringing that all together. As far as the homework assignment, quote unquote, there is an application they need to fill out that's much different than coming into treatment court the first time with some in-depth questions and responses. And if our team isn't satisfied with that, we wouldn't be accepting them back in. So it is more rigorous, I would say, than somebody's first time in treatment court.
Right. But even on the outgoing side, is there something on the outgoing side that says, hey, what you would change? Or
Yes,
Yeah.
we do have an exit interview for our terminated
very cool.
individuals and our graduates. It's always really interesting when the terminated individuals, if they would like to, almost always, I can't even actually think of a time where they didn't do an exit interview because they will say, although this didn't work for me, treatment court helped me in many ways. We've had very positive feedback, even if they are leaving our program without a graduation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would move to approve the resolution that's associated with item 7.4.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the resolution for National Treatment Court Month made by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Vagley. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay. Okay, we'll read that into the National Treatment Court Month, May 2025. Whereas according to All Rise, treatment courts are most successful justice system intervention in our nation's history for reducing crime by addressing substance use and mental health disorders. And whereas treatment courts have an average of more than 6,000 for every individual they courts save an average of more than 6,000 of every individual they serve. And whereas treatment courts provide a range of economic benefits to a community, such as reduced costs in court, prison expenditures, increased tax revenues, lowered foster care expenses, and decreased costs related to victimization. And whereas treatment court combine accountability with evidence-based treatment, and whereas treatment court annually refers more than 1,500 people to life-saving treatment and recovery support services, whereas according to All Rise, treatment courts significantly improve substance use and mental health disorder treatment outcomes and prevent fatal overdoses. And whereas treatment courts facilitate community-wide partnerships bringing together public safety and public health. And whereas there are more than 4,000 treatment courts nationwide, whereas treatment courts demonstrate that when one person rises, we all rise. Therefore, be resolved that the Winona County Board of Commissioners declares the Treatment Court Month be established during the month of May 2025 in Winona County, Minnesota, adopted this 13th day of May 2025. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, folks, for coming and sharing your story with us.
Yep.
We didn't bite. You can tell tell your participants we didn't bite. Okay, thank you. 7.5, discuss potential ideas for use of the 2025 SAHA funds in the community. That's page 198.
Commissioners, I'm Chuck Elliott, the Winona County Finance Director. Just to give you a summary, that's from page 199 of the packet. April 22nd of this year, the board directed staff to compile potential ideas for use of 2025 state affordable housing aid, or also known as SAHA funds in the community. Just to give you some background, SAHA was established by the state of Minnesota in 2023 to help counties, tribes in greater Minnesota local governments develop and preserve affordable housing within their jurisdictions to keep families from losing housing and to help those experiencing homelessness find housing. Qualified projects include emergency rental assistance, financial support to nonprofits, construction, acquisition, rehab, demolition, or removal of structures, and then other types of projects. Winona County has received a total of $266,000. That's from 23 and 24 combined. And then we used it to create the local housing trust fund, which we've already had a conversation about today. This year in 2025, we are told we're going to receive $57,588. I think it comes in two chunks. One of them is in either May or June, and then the second piece is in December, which is a big drop from previous years, well over 50%, and no telling what we'll see for 2026, if anything. So the next step here is to consider possible ideas for the 2025 SAHA funding. There's a handful of them here. This is not complete. But the first one is just to continue funding the local housing trust fund with the $57,000 that comes in this year. You could put it in the Health and Human Services budget to be used in accordance with their ongoing programs that meet the requirements. And there's a couple mentioned here: out-of-home placement for children and adult mental health, also transitional housing. Another option is to fund the warming center. We've heard about that a couple times in regards to Catholic Charities and the problems that they're experiencing there. Or funding another nonprofit specializing in affordable housing here in the county. Just lastly, at this point, we don't have a specific recommendation, but I think the collective preference is to invest in an opportunity that has a repeatable benefit rather than single use.
Because it has dropped significantly. Yeah, Commissioner Elsing.
Yeah, and that's just the one thing I would, again, this is across the board, probably anything, we gotta careful what we start, because when the funding's lost, now how do you continue to do that? It's always the number one issue. It sounds good at first, but when that funding leaves and then you're faced on putting all the burden on the local taxpayer, which God knows I've got enough phone calls already lately. We just need to be very careful of those types of things. So all those single-use type scenarios, we also have to be very careful about long-term use scenarios that require the additional funding to keep going, because we're not guaranteed these dollars. So I would say we look at things that are maybe more pinpointed, that we know we don't have to continue to fund if we lose the fund.
Are we being asked to give it specific, or what's the need for action today? Administrator.
We're bringing back the ideas after seeking advice from other management.
Okay,
And that was how I understood the direction of the board.
sure. Okay, Commissioner Vagley.
So the staff doesn't have any specific recommendations.
No, our recommendation as stated in the packet
It's
is
ongoing.
ongoing value.
And I would have to advocate for, our SEMSHRA, because they already have the infrastructure, the amount is going down. We can see it, and it'll probably dry up, but they do have the infrastructure, to handle monies like this and do, projects. And then with that second bullet there, partner with the city of Winona on an affordable housing venture. What did the city, they also received their own
Mhm.
funding?
More than we did.
Yeah, do we know those numbers, Chuck?
I only knew the big numbers, which was like 185 when we got 132,000.
Right, and so I suppose maybe proportionally it's,
You can look it up on the website. There's a
Yeah.
state website. You can look it up.
Yep,
Okay.
it's pretty straightforward. I
Right.
can.
Yeah.
But
But I
can
mean,
pull
I know
those.
SEMSHA has talked about, with the city of Winona, and again, if they got money, there could possibly be some type of partnership with doing that. So I would advocate, instead of building another, infrastructure, another system to try and fund, is use the existing one. And hopefully it would be more economically viable. Commissioner Vagley.
And to Commissioner Ward, I think you already asked this, so we don't need to decide today.
No.
This is
No,
just a conversation that we could continue.
Yes.
Because my first thought is, first of all, I'd like to wait, because Catholic Charities put in a large grant to the state to move towards an year-round a warming center program. And it would also be a program that leverages more community volunteers. And it would hopefully provide more connections to more services, primarily. And this doesn't mean more county staff, it means more community members taking part in it, but I don't yet know, no one knows yet what will happen in terms of which grants will be funded at what level. So, that's my first thought is, I think we could wait a little while, then my first out of the chute thought is to set aside some for the warming center. Because, and the focus isn't, I apologize, I've had hiccups for 3
Sign.
days.
That's a sign.
Students love it when I'm talking.
Too much tequila or not enough
No,
tequila?
too much allergens.
Too much tequila.
Or not enough
Yeah.
tequila, one or the other.
I haven't tried that yet. No. But, and focus with, warming center is also not just to provide shelter, but to provide shelter and wraparound service.
I would like to ask Buffy, I'm gonna put you on the spot. You're in this business. Where do you think this is going funding wise? And I know you've gotten some updates on some other funding.
I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. It would make managing a lot easier. If I had to bet, I would, knowing where our state is financially, I would guess this funding is probably going to decrease. If I had to guess.
It's dropped in.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is a separate program that is run through MHFA. So yes, it's there to continue through MHFA, but I don't know that they will have the funding for that long term. The money is yours. It's the county's. If you want to utilize SEMSHRA, you certainly can. If you want to give it to a designated project, you certainly can.
It's discretionary.
It's just, it's discretionary in terms of where you want to,
At this point in time.
at this point. Yeah.
Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah, in support of some of the things that Commissioner Vagley has said, the warming center has to move, but they're also trying to become year-round. And we had a conversation at the jail and jail alternatives meeting of the CJCC. It was over a month ago now. And we were talking about what things for people who are repeatedly still ending up in our jail, how can we help them? And honestly, we were talking about doing a survey, but the Trish Chandler, who's the jail social worker, and Kelsey Horse, Sergeant Kelsey Horse, who's in charge of the programming, what they said is, you don't need to do a survey. We can tell you that lack of housing is one of the biggest barriers to people who get out of our jail. And they told 2 stories. So they said, a lot of times those folks have nowhere to go and they use the warming center, but once the warming center closes, because it's only open for a certain number of months, then there is nothing. And so they end up living rough. Or they said having to go couch surfing and end up with friends and then using again because those friends are folks who are, from their past of addiction, right? So their strongest recommendation was, yes, keep the warming center and help it to become a year-round enterprise. To the idea that this is one-time funding because this is the year that they have to find a new location and they're trying to get these big grants, I see it as a good investment for us, just in terms of recidivism, right? So I think that's great. On here also is transitional housing, which again is the idea of some housing for folks who get out of jail. And one of the things they talked about is even if there was one place that people could go for some limited period of time, 7 days or whatever, that would be extremely helpful in terms of keeping people on a good trajectory, which they're on when they get out of being in jail. So I'm totally, like, there's not enough money for all the things I think we need to do and want to do. So all of these are really excellent choices. I don't think this is the year. Honestly, I'm not sure how long, when it would be the year again, but there is a lot of pressure. A number of us get organizations inside the city of Winona reaching out to us. They want more low-income housing. And a partnership with the city to do that. And even if it didn't happen inside the city of Winona, if it happened in Goodview, I still think that would be a great opportunity. One thing I would like for us to consider in the long run is if we are not fully using our revolving loan fund, could we take several $100,000s and repurpose that to put towards a project for some low income housing? So
Which revolving loan fund?
You mean the
Wait,
EDA?
the EDA revolving loan fund.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think we have like $1.2 million, and
Yep.
there's a very small amount of that actually ends up being out in loans.
Right now, there's a couple $100,000 out
Yeah.
now, but yeah.
And the rest is just sitting there earning interest. And I understand the importance of that fund. I wouldn't want to get rid of the whole fund, but
I think, we've talked about that. I think you have to
Guidelines.
get
we have to go to
legislation
deed.
changed.
I think we'd have to go to deed to get
Because it
that
was
changed.
targeted, it was a targeted amount.
Still,
so.
it's a priority now, and I'm not saying this is the year to do it, but I'm very interested in trying to do something. And I think any of the uses on here would be great, so.
We're as clear as mud.
So it's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, Chuck. Thanks for bringing.
All right. Item 7.6, discuss provide direction for proposed elimination of state funding for Sentence to Serve program, page 200.
You're not finished with me yet. I'll take you to page 209, which is sort of the executive summary of this. So on February of this year, the state of Minnesota informed counties and probably cities, but of the governor's intention to eliminate state funding for the Sentencing to Service Program, STS. I'll just use that acronym going forward. In the 2026-27 budget, if adopted, state funding for the program will end June 30th, 2025, so a little over a month from now. So what do we need to do? We need to decide on a course of action once state funding for STS ends in 6 weeks. Some background here. The program provides a way for low-risk offenders to work off a portion of their jail sentence, their fines, court costs, et cetera. The Winona County, our portion of paying for this program is $78,000, which pays for 75% of the cost of the program. But over the past 2 years, only about 50% of the work was actually performed on Winona County projects. So they do other things. They work on DNR, state parks, nonprofits, properties and the city of Winona projects as well. So direct benefit to Winona County government property is about 50% of the work. So in other words, so there are other, the third bullet here is that if this program were to end, there are other entities within Winona County that will continue to provide an opportunity for offenders to work on projects once the state funding ends. The average daily crew size for this program is less than one. And in many days, there's no crew at all, and it's just the crew leader doing the work. So it's kind of a hollow sort of program. I think it's, well, it's not, I'm not going to give my opinion, but, and I'll just take you to the next table here is a couple of options that we've sort of laid out with a recommendation as well. First option is to absorb the program completely within Winona County, fully fund it. And then I'll just take you through kind of what that would mean. The cost of the program at that point, instead of 78,000, would become 160,000. And then we would need about 35,000 for startup costs. You have to go buy a van or whatever to transport everybody, get some tools, that sort of thing. The pros and cons is the program would continue, but the program, it does have some inherent inefficiencies to it, because depending upon if you have a male and a female, there's certain things that you have to do there. There are certain places you can't go with this crew to do the work. So it's somewhat inefficient in that regard. And because of these things, because of the additional cost, the burden, the budgetary burden, we're not recommending this, because the program already is declining in numbers. And for a variety of reasons, some of which judges just aren't ordering it. The offenders, they choose to pay, out of pocket rather than serve. And then again, the additional costs related to it. The second option here is exploring a joint funding of the sentencing to service program with neighboring counties. I would just tell you that this would take a lot more work and review to just see if there's anybody else out there around us that would want to participate in that sort of thing. The benefit would be the program would continue, but it would be hard to manage. And we're not recommending this one either because of that. It would be hard to manage. There would be more overhead involved. You'd probably require a joint powers agreement and, that sort of thing. And if you think about it, like, how would it function? You get in the van and drive to Houston County and then back here, and whose projects are you working on? I think it would just be a lot of work to make this thing function, and it would be hard to do. And with one crew member or one crew size, maybe. So if you think it through, that's kind of what we did and figured that was not one we would recommend either. Now, the third one is the one we are recommending, but end the program as it exists. But I will tell you that talking with Mr. Kramer and Mr. Lafee, Winona County did get about 1,000 hours of work every year that they did benefit from because that work was done on our facilities, our property, our buildings, that sort of thing. So if we end it and do nothing, we're going to lose that maintenance. For 2025, for the rest of the year, we're saying end the program as far as just let it run its course and be done in the end of June. We do have 78,000 in the budget. So theoretically, we're only going to spend half of that by paying the state. The rest of the money we could use to contract services if we need it, whether it's lawn mowing or painting or that sort of thing. So I think get through the rest of this year and then evaluate. And if we decide, okay, hey, that's working fine, let's we'll deal with whatever it is we think we need to do in the 2026 budget. But we've got some money in the budget now to kind of get us through the rest of the year. That's the one we're recommending.
Mr. Bagley?
Is it okay, Aaron, for me to ask you your opinion on this? Because you're the one who works probably most closely with the crews, right? Thank you, Chuck.
I agree with everything that Chuck said. The clients that come in are very low, so it's usually just the crew leader that
Yep.
is working.
Okay.
It is kind of hard to manage because if you bring a client in, you just can't go to any part of a
Right.
building. You can't go over to the attorney's office,
Yep.
jail, stuff like that. So a lot of the stuff they did was outside because it was easier to manage.
Yep.
If we just did nothing, again, the parks and building maintenance, we don't have enough crew to keep it up. So we would suffer on that part of it.
That's what I was concerned about the part.
Yep. So like I said, they did a lot of the park work, just because it was easy
Yep.
to manage, go out there. We don't have to have escorted through the building or
Yep.
anything like that. I guess, what else did you have for a
So,
question?
with this third option, we could still, I'll use a very, very practical, pragmatic, concrete example. So with this third and the program, but use some of the budget for contract services, we could still get farmers park mowed and things like that. And
Yes, we can still get that done. Small projects are hard to hire out. We've tried that before. Say you have a hole in the sheetrock, you call somebody, they're like, yeah, we'll do it for $1,000.
Yeah.
It should cost about 250 to do it.
Yeah.
But they're gonna charge to make it worth their time so to try to get small projects done, we're gonna pay more.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find a contractor to do. Even we got quotes to paint some of the rooms over at the courthouse, like the holding areas.
Yeah.
They're outrageous. I'm like, I just can't pay that much. I mean,
We'll
If-
figure it out.
yeah, so.
Commissioner Olson?
I had a question for Chuck. When you come up with 160,000 ongoing cost, are you assuming that at the existing cost, or would this person then become a county employee that would run the program through the county?
Yep. I asked Mr. Kramer to just come up with a budget, if we were to absorb the program 100%, we would need a crew leader. So that's the biggest chunk of the 160 is an additional FTE.
And Karen, my question to you is, what's going on and why aren't
People using us.
people using the program? Now, I'm gonna say this with Houston County Jail, we have a large amount of square footage that's dedicated to this whole program that ended there. So we have locker rooms that are sitting empty. A big portion of that facility was dedicated to that. They have a separate entrance, a place where the van would pull up and they would come in and go out, and cameras and
Right.
doors, and
Yeah,
we just did that with our jail.
well, and there is that facility in the jail which the Huber folks use. Same thing. I think when I'm thinking about this, because Renee Patterson, who's the Department of Corrections supervisor for the area, for Aaron's talked with her. It's kind of good news, bad news. Our programs to reduce the jail population and get people out earlier, in terms of, getting them programming for mental health, controlled substance use. We have a pretrial services program now that we put them on a GPS monitor, so they're out and so the need for the program, because of the success we've had in the other programs, has dropped. I mean, when I first started as a public defender, everybody wanted to use STS because we had a lot of jail population. This was 30 some years ago. And the courts would give day for day credit so that you could get out in half the time if you did STS. And the crews then were, and they continue to be that, but yeah, there's been a drop off. Obviously, so it doesn't make sense economically. STS makes sense from a point of view of helping somebody learn how to do a job responsibly and do it well. So we're gonna lose that, but I think the numbers don't justify right now
Numbers are way
the
down.
program, so. yeah.
You're absolutely right. It used
Mhm.
to be a very robust program, but it just is dwindling.
10,
yeah.
15 people.
Yep, yep.
Well, we had two crew
Yeah, we had two
leaders. at
leaders
one
and
time.
then the DLC cut that,
Yeah.
so,
That wasn't that many years ago.
right,
No.
it wasn't.
No,
So-
we had,
And we had a great crew leader in one
I
of
like
them, so,
option
yeah.
3, Commissioner Vega.
So that's,
Yeah.
we're also just discussing this and providing general comments, but my first thought is also option 3. Just
Yeah, because it ends, the state funding ends June 25th. That's just 6 weeks away and stuff. Okay, so you got your, maybe you recruit some 4-H kids or Boy Scouts or volunteers.
I'm just gonna advocate for the program. I just know from my experience in Houston County that we had to add halftime FTE. And it has tremendously added to our workload for staffing, and we're not getting as much work done. And we do hire a lot more professional services to fill and it was the same person, Craig, very talented, very skilled. I just had a conversation with him on Friday, so.
But Houston County has discontinued.
They
it also.
discontinued the
Yeah,
program,
okay.
and so that has now become a expense through my direction of hiring more contractors to complete the work that Craig is very skilled and
Yes, he
Houston
is.
County, on that list, Houston County was the only neighborhood, county that had anybody. So I guess, yeah, all right, we're done. Thank you.
Brandon.
Thank you very much.
Does the staff need more direction from us?
Okay. 7.7, discuss potential zoning ordinance change requiring private well tests prior to property sale. To 11. Commissioner Meyer?
May I start us off? Yeah. So what is not there, but has also been a part of what I've been saying all along, is this idea that if you are renting a property in a rural part of the county that your well, and you are getting your water from a private well, part of what I'm asking for is that we require a well test and then providing that information to the renters. This is a booklet that comes from the Minnesota Department of Health that sort of talks about and gives example ordinances. I just got it off of their website around this topic. So one of the ideas is that folks who are renting in a rural area and have a private well do deserve some kind of protection in terms of what their drinking water is. Then the second idea is that private wells, in the same way that we require a septic system test when there's a property transfer, that we think about adding a test for private wells, for real estate that has a private well in the same way. And again, when the Minnesota Department of Health talks about it, they talk about how some of us are on municipal water systems and there are a certain set of guarantees about the water quality that we have because it gets tested, it is regulated, there's someone that takes care of it. So it's to try and provide some sort of assurance to a new property owner about the quality of the well. Now, at our last discussion, you talked about believing that the majority of banks are already requiring that kind of a test. I can't find any evidence to that effect. I'm wondering if that's a thing we can ask staff about. What the Minnesota Department of Health does say is that many banks do require that, but of course, there's not any language about consistency. So I know that our testing that's happening now is for 5 things. So perhaps we'd like to consider even just giving advice about what the 5 things are if the board doesn't decide to make it a regulation. But I would love us to see us provide some support for renters.
Good morning. Most of when I addressed that at the committee of the board meeting, that is basically staff experience. On a regular basis, I'm contacted by title companies, realtors, property owners where there's test results that are conflicting with the property transfer, what their options are. So it's fairly standard within the industry that the mortgage companies require a acceptable water test within 30 to 60 days of closing. So that is just kind of the industry standard. VA requires a third-party test. They usually like a government entity to do that. We've stopped doing that, so we just periodically issue a letter saying we no longer do that, and then they can hire a third party to plumber or home inspection company to provide that third party test. So that's kind of what's not getting covered would be your cash sales, contract for deeds, refinances, and transfers to trust. Most institutions don't require any type of testing in those situations.
Most of those are just moving inter-party. They're not really a replication of sale. A contract for deed arguably could be.
So question for you, Ross, in those 4 or 5 things you mentioned. Would we even have knowledge of that happening until after the fact? Until it gets recorded? And then
It
it's
would
done,
be
and the tests would be too late.
Yeah, it would be a time of recording that we would do, the recorder's office would be aware of them. It's kind of in the discussions, I'm trying to visualize how would we capture this and how would we regulate that?
How do we do septics? Is that at the time of recording?
That is, Eric would be probably the best to address that one. It is.
As a follow-up to another thing that Commissioner Meyer said for rural rental, that are in a well, private well, how would we, so we put that into a mandated action, but how would we follow up? Do we know what's being rented?
We, over 20 years ago, Environmental Services had proposed the consideration of a rental housing ordinance in the rural, and there was not support for that because it would require the addition of staff, and it was a level of regulation that the board did not support. So we did propose that a couple of different times because we do receive many, many complaints that we just simply have to leave as civil matters between the landlord and the the renter. So
Okay, so so I know I did ordered a lot of this in the city of Winona when specific properties were on private wells. There are a few out there that are being rented, and I would do it during my course of inspection, would order the owner to do that. So we can't really accomplish that in the county because we don't know, because we don't have an ordinance, because there's no inspection program. If a tenant complained or called the county and said, you know, something's goofy with my water, can the county then, for public health reasons, mandate that the owner test the well? Because they are now becoming an agent rather than.
but there is nothing stopping the resident from doing it. If cost is the issue, then does the county want to play a role in that? Does in providing access to a test kit or within the realm of the public health laws, there would be no authority to order a homeowner to do that.
It's really it's kind of a sticky situation because you're taking private information and relinquishing it. Does the tenant even have the ability to relinquish information about a private well to a government agency? You know, there's a lot of things here that start to get sticky when you get into the regulatory aspect of what's being asked. My opinion on this is one of being in real estate is a lot of this stuff is already happening. We just might not be aware of it. So we're finding out that this is happening more than what you realize. 2 is I know very few people that want more government involvement in their life. I think most people would argue that we want less government. And I fall back on what I've stated on all the water boards that I've sat on for a decade plus is education over, the word just got brought up, regulation. And I feel like that is a palatable thing with government trust in elected officials that, hey, we don't want to be regulated, but we want to be educated. And you can see already that even the private institutions are taking a look at these things because they are in essence insuring what they are giving a loan out for, making sure that this is a large cost. I've even gone so far as, you know, on the septic systems that a lot of these are becoming, I shouldn't say a lot of them. There's some of these that are becoming privately excuse me, through taxpayer funded situations that we're fixing. So it's counterintuitive for me to sit here and say educate over regulate, because I always say, hey, you bought a piece of property, you should be responsible for that. But I go back to the educational aspect. If people know what they're buying, they should be responsible for it, right? And so it's in my head, it goes back and forth, but in reality, I don't think people want more government in their life. And also we need to teach people, educate people, not do it for them and mandate it in the aspect that, hey, this is what has to happen. So I think it goes both sides. We need to protect the private aspect of what something is, as well as educate the public as to what the idiosyncrasies are that when purchasing a property. So I really think we look at the educational aspect rather than more government and regulations.
And Eric was going to provide the septic. Where does that get triggered?
Well, the point of sale is when there is a certificate of real estate value, a CRV. But I think right now we can't stop transactions.
Right.
The bulk of what we're getting are after the fact that the recorder is supplying us a copy as a courtesy
Sure.
for us to follow up and to, look through the records and see if something was missed. But with that being said, there's probably a contract for deeds and a lot of transfers that we're not catching.
Sure. But to try and do it up front would be monumental staff time and a whole new
To
realm
stop
of.
the recorder's office from
Yeah.
doing their business, to
Yeah.
create a route where
It's by statute somewhere. that they
we've
gotta-
discussed that,
The
you know,
education
that would have been earth shattering, I think, for Bob and his office if we would have done that with the septics.
Yep.
As well as then they talked about the parcel split ordinance where we could stop, until we
And
got.
really, in
change.
reality, we're trying to regulate something that actually the fractional bit of that happening in the country. I mean, we talk about what's the total number of contract for deeds for year, what's the total number of land trust transfers? And usually those transfers are going interfamily.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying to control something that is so marginal in the actual amount of transactions that are happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
You-
like
you
I said,
know-
I think the educational piece of this really sets into
Y-
place
That's
more
just
than the
it.
regulation.
In 2008, I think is when we first started floating the septic point of sale because it
We'd be
was
talking
getting
maybe
to that
10
point where
total
that was being
transactions.
done,
Yeah.
by the private sector. And, it's accomplishing the same goals. As far as, I did talk to a contractor that provides the water tests. I said, what's your input on this? And he says, you wouldn't need, right now it's being handled in the private sector.
Yeah,
Okay.
like I
That-
said,
that
I
was
think we're trying to
compensated
regulate
on.
about maybe 10 transactions a year by creating all this work for it. It's so very little that's not being actually already tested.
Commissioner Olson.
Question, so after the fact, septic test, point of sale, and it fails.
Mhm.
How is it handled then? So they bought a house or a property that has a failed septic, now we mandate that it gets corrected, right?
Yeah, and the problem is time of year with septic too, because there's usually a good 5 to 6 months where they really can't even perform
Mhm.
soil borings to establish whether it's
Right.
failing or not. So it's deferred until the next summer. And then once, it is inspected, that's a notice and they're given either 10 months or 2 years. Most cases, it's 2 years to do something. And in that case, we did a whole lot of coaching with the attorneys and real estate agents when we kicked that off. We've been doing it since 2012. We had to keep deferring it just so we got the education and the word out there and worked with the parties that were
Almost
involved
common
with these.
knowledge now that
Yeah.
you have to.
So ultimately, we're achieving the goal of getting a,
Septic's upgraded.
Okay.
And unfortunately, it showed that a lot of the newer systems were failed because of the strict interpretation of soil. So all of our staff that's been involved with replacing are, that's the kind of the part that's dismaying is we're fixing a lot of systems that were only, 12, 15, 20 years old, and that's fairly new as far as the life of them, so that showed a real problem with the soil and the design. So we're fixing fairly new systems. That's my problem with
Commissioner
what.
Olson.
The other
what
thing
we've
we
done.
see too is there's a lot of preemptive testing, knowing, hey, we fall into those winter months where you can't do much. Hey, I know I'm gonna put my house up for my I'm gonna do it now. It's good for a year. Here you go. If it doesn't sell, well, you might have to do it again, type of a deal. So it's happening more proactively, just like the well testing and everything is happening. The banks are requiring it. It's, like I said, there's a few transactions that might slip through, but most of those are private transactions.
Yep, and our form, to that credit, we did have a responsibility form where, as I pointed out to a lot of the calls I get on a daily basis, it's an exercise to figure out what the price tag is. That's purely negotiable between the buyer and seller with these transactions. And then there's an escrow that has been the preferred route of most of the transactions is they set aside a number of money and we have to, staff has to look at that to make sure it's reasonable and that it makes sense. And a lot of cases, they're abandoning the old system and hooking up to city sewer where they're in that vicinity. And then we got battles with the township
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they're
Wilson.
put on notice that they're gonna lose those township properties. But we always have a half a dozen of those every year, so.
Commissioner Vagley.
A couple questions, first for Ross and for Eric. When the private sector does this testing, none of the information or results are shared with the county or the state, correct?
It depends on what testing lab they use. If they're using a private laboratory, no, it's not shared with the county, but much of the testing is done through the Olmsted County Public Health Lab, which provides us access to their results.
Some of it is not, that data is not shared.
Correct,
Considered private data unless it's exposed to a government entity.
correct.
Commissioner Olson, from your experience as being a home inspector, most lenders require home inspections, but water is not part of that.
No, we note on our home inspection reports, anytime we do a rural property, well not tested on water not certified recommendation, and we check it. But that's,
We do have other home inspection companies that do come in and regularly pull water test
Because
kits.
it's already has to build off of that. And I think that information is public information.
No.
No, not
No, it's not.
necessarily.
I think it should be in terms
Well,
of just raw
but,
data points, but in terms of us requiring, other actions, but in terms of just raw data.
I don't think constitutionally you can do that. That's why the state has never mandated it. They can only voluntarily, sitting on all the water boards, you can only voluntarily disclose that information. Otherwise, the state could just go around and mandate it. So that's always been the issue. That's why we have voluntary water testing, and then you can relinquish that if you so choose to.
The reason is that it's a shared resource, but those are very important points. And the last question for Commissioner Meyer, I'm interested in this idea. What are you interested in doing?
So it sounds like in terms of what the rental properties, the fact that we don't do licensure for rental properties or inspections is a stumbling block. I am interested, though, in a mechanism for renters to get that sort of information if they want it. This document looks at national, like other states, cities inside the state. And I'm wondering if you can help figure out a way to make some kind of mechanism available to rental properties to overcome those issues.
I'm sorry, we have no data of, you keep talking about rural renters and I can't picture any in my neighborhood that are rentals. There's gotta be very few rural rental properties in Winona County. Maybe I'm wrong. My neighborhood, there isn't.
I could only think of a handful. maybe.
Most would fall in within incorporated
Yeah,
entities, but there are some, it's gonna be difficult to identify because they would simply be listed as non-homestead. They generally are not classified as like a duplex, triplex, or residential,
My goal
4
would be
plus,
to
so.
try to help them to achieve this sort of transparency so that they could have an understanding about the well water that they're drinking.
right.
Commissioner Olson.
So there's a landlord tenant document from the state that I refer people to all the time. And oftentimes they run into a brick wall because there's nobody in the rural area to do an inspection to determine if it's substandard. So you're kind of SOL.
But how many rural rentals do we have? I mean, I just don't know that we
Oh, yeah,
have
I know
many.
Even in, so I am the licensed building official for the city of Stockton. They have rentals in Stockton
Yeah, but that's.
that are not licensed by the city of Stockton. I cannot do the rental inspections. I'm there to strictly do code enforcement.
Out in the country, it'd mainly be single-family residential houses.
Yeah. And
There's gotta only be a
limited.
few of them in the whole county, I would think.
Or a few.
I think educate versus regulate. I
I
think
don't
we're
know if we
doing that. I
create
think
this
that
whole big
lending
standard for-
institutions,
Absolutely.
renters,
second,
we
back
could
to-
advocate,
pardon me.
advocate at the Minnesota Department of Health for them to do a campaign. You know, they're the water people. And they've done a lot with the testing in southeast Minnesota. So I think the awareness is much higher than it was, you know, a few years ago.
So back to Commissioner Bagley's question. I really would like to make sure that it isn't just buyer beware, that we are proactive in whatever is the best way. This is, these sort of particular zoning changes are something that the Minnesota Department of Health is promoting. And Tanny Eschenauer, who's from the MDH, well, why haven't any counties adopted them? So I think I'd probably like to give feedback to them in terms of, into the Department of Health, just in terms of what are reasonable expectations? And how is it that we can achieve these things, given the whole set of kind of difficulties that we're facing in terms of trying to address the topic?
I think some of it just comes down to how do we get the information that to quantify the issue and what are the barriers. With the free testing and, you know, interest in Winona County is topping every other surrounding county. So we as well as installation of treatment devices. So the interest is very present. It's being well utilized. Hopefully that will address many of those concerns, but where cost for a well replacement is the barrier that you know, that will continue to be an issue.
Right, but although that is not the only solution. I mean, right?
Yeah, you can.
There are less expensive options that we can do, yeah.
Right.
We can, unless the well has a persistent bacteria problem, then treatment becomes problematic.
Right. So you want to share that document and this is just an ongoing
Yep.
discussion. Okay, if you can send that out to everybody.
Yep.
That would be appreciated.
Thanks.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Ross, thank you, Art.
All right, let's see, committee reports and communications, Commissioner Elsing.
Nothing. Oh, no.
Oh,
I didn't, I thought you were jumping over.
oh, no, he had nothing.
Yeah, I guess the only thing that I wanted to say was I've had multiple phone calls, few emails, but most of them, I think. It's been very interesting to see with I realize we had a tax debacle here that we hope we got fixed, but just the continuance of phone calls for fixed income individuals, retired individuals, young families, people that have caught me at gas stations, for us to really control our spending. They were getting hit by a lot of different things in a lot of different areas outside of not only government, but obviously some inflationary factors that are finally starting to come down, but just the overall cost of living. And I just want to bring that up and, you know, put it on the public statement that it doesn't go on deaf ears. And you can argue with you all you want, but to me, government should be run like a business or as close to a business as possible. And the ability for me to cover my tax bill that I just brought in today and paid, I wasn't able to stick my hand out and just demand more money through a vote. I have to figure out how to go earn that money to pay that. And I think with that same diligence that I have to figure out to do that, I also want to reach out to my constituents and say, I understand. And then I think as an elected official, we need to constantly keep that in mind because we are not a growing community. This community is actually projected to decrease. And so please, let's please keep that in mind as we look at things we spend our money on.
Okay, I would echo what Commissioner Elsing saying. The ag credits and using of Tyler. Okay, every time we buy a new software, oh, it's the new shiny out of the box and it's the best thing and everything. And this is not a new system. We've had this system for a while and it's been around. So even my property had to get a new statement.
Did you?
Yes, because ag credits were miscalculated throughout the county, not just the Lewiston School District. And it changed. So on my way in today, my husband's at home writing out the checks. He says, do I write it off the official looking one? Or do I pay off the non-official looking one? Because we did get a new statement. So I hope we're working with Tyler and I hope we are compensated. I mean, just the idea of running new statements, mailing them out, not, the community angst. That constituent of mine is harping on me, like, what did you do? And I didn't do anything. It's the computer software, but why it happened and what the corrective actions are being taken, because it affected all the ag properties, which is unfortunate because mine hasn't, none of the classifications should have changed. So I hope you're following up with Tyler. And I remember they were at a AMC conference, Tyler Works. Well, Tyler didn't work. That was their logo.
Actually, I think we're lucky that it wasn't everybody's tax statements. I figure if you have to get number X and you're spreading it across all the properties in the county, and this set is wrong, it would make everybody's wrong.
Yeah.
Because
The
like,
credits.
but apparently it was limited to just that category.
Well,
So,
but the
okay, that's a
ag
lucky
land is
thing.
it's a
That's
lot of
lucky,
category.
but
and
still,
such. It's unacceptable. In business, we wouldn't accept their performance. So I think we need to hold their feet accountable and explain to our constituents that, yes, we did get some retribution from, the computer software that failed. And again, it's a public image. It did not make any of us look good.
I should have just made a recording.
Pardon me?
It was your name on the statement.
No, we changed that. It's Chelsea's.
I should have, what I should have done is made a recording and then just played the recording
Recording?
every time. the
Yeah,
phone
you
rang.
tried to explain this to constituents. Absolutely. Okay. All right. And just reminder, May, everything is getting planted. Be respectful of any, farm agriculture equipment on the roads. There's a lot of planting done and a lot of planting yet to be done, but just be respectful of any large equipment. There's a lot of little road construction. I travel up 61. They're picking up rocks off the side of the road and they're diverting traffic. And there's a lot of MnDOT vehicles. So just slow down. People just need to slow down a little bit on the roads.
I forgot to mention one thing. I
Yes.
would love to make it to the ceremony tomorrow, but I've got to head to South Dakota, so I will not
Okay.
make it for that.
All right.
But,
And reminder that law enforcement is tomorrow at 1:00 between the law enforcement center and the courthouse. And hopefully a beautiful sunshiny day to be outside. All right. Any other business for the Winona County Board?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Elzine, seconded by Commissioner Olson to adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, we adjourn. We will be going into closed session next door. Let's take 5. Do we have to say why we're going there?
Yes.
Okay, closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute section 13D.05 subdivision 3C3 to develop or consider offers or counter offers for purchase or sale of real or personal property at 121 Huff Street. Okay, so next door in 5.